People who have snapped on a bully at school. What's your story? 5th grade, this dude who always picked on me was kicking my seat in assembly, and I was having a terrible week and this was my last straw. I punched him in the face, but I wasn't satisfied with the first punch because it felt weak, so I figured I'm already going to be in trouble, so I went back for a second better punch that felt worth getting in trouble over. Also, this was a dare assembly, which was about saying no to drugs and violence, so I basically learned nothing. Might as well be hanged for a sheep as a lamb. I was being bullied for like a month when I was 13 or 14. Some guy from my class started messing with me, pushing, hair grabbing, neck slapping, stuff like that, and I didn't know how to handle it. One of his friends from another class, a guy I had never spoken to before, tried it once and I instinctively punched him in the face. Bullying stopped. If that random guy didn't do what he did, I don't know how I would have put an end to it, to be honest. I smashed a kid across the face with a stapler because he hit me all the time and I got tired of it. I was in 7th grade. Didn't get caught. My second in France, like 15 years old, bully decided to sit next to me in class, repeatedly whispered insults to me, and at one point I snapped, took his head and bashed it into the desk. I think I would have been in deep crap had his textbook not been there. Needless to say, I got kicked out of that class and had to change English group. Come on, N slam. Couple of bullies like to do monkey in the middle with me. Didn't take me long to figure out the solution was to simple tackle one of the bullies and start punching. They actually played Russian roulette, lol. In 4th grade, this kid named Nick used to punch me every day at recess. I went home one day crying about it, and my dad told me to punch him back. So the next day when Nick came around to punch me, I whipped around and just beat the snot out of him. Absolutely wailed on him. One of the teachers noticed and took us to the principal's office and we got off with warnings. After that, Nick never punched me again, but would make sure I could get to the front of the line for the drinking fountain and picked me first for any sports game he was team captain for. 6th grade, a few days before end of school year. Beat his butt and didn't stop even with teachers saying so. The bully stopped, but I was sick and tired of his crap. Lucky me, I didn't have to come in for those remaining 3 days. Best of all was that my parents were on my side. It's good that you fought back. Most people say to ignore it, but that will just make you look like more of a target. For context, I'm 6 feet 5 inches and have been since high school. There was a girl I was friends with who had a boyfriend. There was nothing going on between us, but her boyfriend was older and used to call me names and throw crap at me in the halls. I'm not a particularly confrontational person, so I'll let it go on like that for a while. There was a day when he knocked my books out of my hand and I had had enough. He wasn't nearly as big as I was, so I picked him up by his shirt and slammed him against a locker. The bullying stopped. Frick yeah, if you don't teach bullies their lesson early on, they will have to learn it later on when they can get into serious trouble. I was 11, he was 9, but he beat up my 6-year-old sister on the bus home one day and none of the adults would do anything about it. So after we got off the bus, I kicked his butt. He never bothered my sister or any other kid ever again. There's always a bigger fish. I was 7 and I was a nice kid with average grades, and this one bully that was taller than me. He used to be any typical bully, like trip you on your lunch and push your head for no apparent reason. I was getting annoyed that I felt the red heat go all over my body. I looked at him and told him to stop. I looked at him, he pushes me to the ground. I stop and kicked his tables and punched his nose with all my force. His nose started to bleed and I was sent to the office. My mom had this thing where if they started it, then she'll pretend that she's mad at me at school and come home saying congrats. Nah, that's one of the few nice things my father ever did. If a bully pushed far enough that I had to defend myself, he showed up angry as heck that teachers ever let it get to the point that I had to defend myself. One of his rules for fighting in school is that I should never initiate a fight, but I should defend myself when it came to it. A group of boys thought it was hilarious to keep our football and stop us from getting it back after it rolled towards them on the school field. They kept passing it between themselves and picking it up and trying to keep it away from us. After trying for about a minute to get the ball from them by running after it, one of them picked the ball up and kept moving it away, trying to keep it out of my reach. I took a few steps back, no longer interested in trying to not hurt them, and did a goal kick on the ball. I kicked his hand in the process and the ball smacked him in the face and gave him a bloody nose. He didn't even try to react. He just turned and walked away with his tail between his legs. Best mental image ever. The bully would always grab my butt or slap my neck, say rude things about my nationality and insult me. I often told him to stop that, but he never did. For a year and a half. Once, in a lecture, he came to my desk and grabbed my butt. I had a really bad day that day too. The moment he grabbed my butt, I saw red. I was mad. I stood up and looked him in the eye. I took his head and smashed it against the wall with all I had. Nothing serious happened to him, except for the teacher being mad at him for bothering me. I was a quiet and good-hearted kid, and the teacher knew that. I'm a guy, and that butthole wasn't even gay. Or maybe he was, but never admitted it. Not at school, but I was 12 and a kid on my block constantly challenged me to fight him because he knew I didn't want to, so it was a great way for this chubby, incompetent brat to show off. One day, outside the convenience store, to his surprise I accepted. He came towards me and I basically just lifted up my leg and kicked him in the stomach. Honestly, he just bounced off my foot. In shock, he came at me again. This repeated about 3 times as the expression of disbelief on his face became more pathetically pronounced. He finally gave up and ran home past my house, telling my mother, who happened to be outside, that I beat him up. But she already knew about his behavior towards me, so as soon as I explained what happened, it was all good. He wasn't actually hurt physically, just emotionally. We both learned a good lesson that day, and he actually grew up to be a decent guy from what I could tell. This repeated about 3 times as the expression of disbelief on his face became more pathetically pronounced. Freaking hilarious. In middle school we were hanging around before classes started, and this guy who used to be my friend came up behind me and put a condom in my mouth. I turned around, pushed him up against the wall and punched him in the face. The whole school heard about it and they were all backing me up for the rest of the day. I didn't even get in trouble. He was super embarrassed and tried to negotiate with me, saying you have to let me punch you back to make up for it or save his honor or some crap. People would not stop teasing him about it. I think that when the teachers heard about it they thought it was funny and I had a good rep with them, so they let it slide. I had been bullied all year long by this guy, and it was the last week of 8th or 9th grade. Comes up to me and says something about my clothes or something, and I just saw red. I turned around and hit him with a palm strike to the face. The bottom of my hand connected right under his nose. He doubled over and I bolted. I heard later his lip got stuck in his braces and he had to go to the doctor to fix it. I got a stern talking to about not hitting people, although my teachers were aware of the verbal bullying. That's the worst problem, is people in authority knowing about it and ignoring it. 5th grade. Can't remember what specifically caused me to snap, but after spending the last 5 years being continually harassed, bullied, and assaulted by a specific boy, I'd had enough. I calmly walked to the mounted pencil sharpener at the back of the class and sharpened my pencil to a very fine tip. Then, I walked behind said bully, and in a downward motion slashed him across the entirety of his back in one fluid motion. Obviously, I got a truckload of crap for what I did. Principal insinuated to my mother that the parents of the other boy may want to press charges for my harming of their pride and joy. My mother, bless her heart, retorted back, if that's the case, perhaps I should press charges, considering how often my son has been coming home with cuts, bruises and welts administered at their boys' hands without repercussions from your staff. The principal moonwalked out of that conversation so freaking fast. I still was read the riot act at home, though. Got drilled into me that what I did was use a weapon to harm someone, and that it would never be tolerated at any level. Grounded for a very, very long time. Bully gave me space, for a while anyway. Went back to his usual torment after a couple weeks, minus any physical contact. I'm imagining the principal hearing your mom say that and then him hee-heeing his way out of the room. High school. One girl made my life heck. I didn't even know her or fully understand why she targeted me. She tried to run me over and told cops I walked in front of her car. One day walking up the stairs, she proceeded to taunt me, hitting me in the back with objects and calling me names. I stopped, turned around and punched her in the nose. She landed on her back on the landing. I just stood over her and said, "What now, B?" She never said one word to me after that. I love this. This happened in 8th grade. I was bullied from the beginning of 7th grade and one day, I decided to report him. I got bullied for reporting the bully. I got so mad that one day after church I beat him up in the parking lot. I made sure I didn't beat him up enough to have to call an ambulance but enough to hurt. He didn't mess with me from then onwards. I find it ironic you beat him up after attending church, lol. I was severely bullied from my earliest memory all the way through high school. The times I remember snapping were these. 3rd grade, we were putting the chairs upside down onto the desks at the end of the day and this kid kept pushing my chair and pushing me. I turned around and shoved him as hard as I could with both hands and he fell onto the desk behind him. The chair fell off. He fell off onto the chair, and I got in trouble. 4th grade, at some Boy Scout thing and there were sodas. I got one out of the cooler and a kid who bullied me a lot grabbed it out of my hand and walked away. I grabbed another one and threw it at the back of his head. Got in trouble, of course. 7th or 8th grade, after being bullied incessantly, I lost it and was crying and screaming and punching the lockers and got in trouble for denting a couple of them. 9th or 10th grade, while on the bus, one of the bullies grabbed my comb out of my back pocket. He'd messed with me a lot. Rather than punching, for some reason I used my open hand to slap him really hard on top of his head. He was seated and I was standing in the aisle. He complained of his neck hurting from it and I got in trouble. Between each of these instances, I'd put up with constant bullying every day and do nothing and no teachers gave a crap. Bullies got away with bullying all the time, but even if I simply said "leave me alone" with a loud voice, I was in trouble. It never made sense to me. To clarify, I'm not the attention-seeking, intentional victim type, just answering Up's question and relaying my experiences. While I still have a ton of self-doubt, I'm doing pretty decently now. Took a frick ton of time and effort, though, lol. Zero tolerance. Yeah, zero tolerance for people defending themselves against constant bullying. Beat mine with a hockey stick one day after school. We were playing road hockey. He lived down the street. He just kept going and to be honest I saw red. I just remember my dad pulling me off while I was slamming my wooden goalie stick into his side while he tried to cover his bleeding face. His parents never perused anything. My parents took me to counseling. He ended up nearly killing his best friend in a drinking and driving accident. Friend was never the same. Permanently injured. Bully killed himself a few years later after he didn't make a junior hockey team. I still feel bad. I have never been in any violent interaction before or since. Now as an adult and an educator I know he was likely really hurting. I am sorry, Justin. The only way we improve as a greater community is to role model how to be human. And that includes mistakes, regrets, and sorrow as much as it includes success, celebrations and happiness. Keep sharing it all. We all learn from our shared stories. Anyone reading this, if you're struggling with any thoughts of serious self-harm, please call your local suicide helpline. I've used them before. It does help, even if it's just a little. Keep taking care of each other, everyone. It takes little effort to be kind. This was in 7th grade, I think. I threw a shoe at him in a change room. He was just picking on some random kid and I just had enough of his crap. And I completely missed him and hit the guy that he was picking on right in the face. Everyone froze for a second and then burst out into laughter. And the guy who was being picked on started crying and I felt really bad because I meant to hit the bully. Shoes are hard to throw accurately, okay. I tried to tell him that it was for the bully and I guess I calmed him down a little bit. Also by apologizing profusely. After the incident, the mood in the change room was lightened and everyone started being more chill with each other, so I guess it was a success, lol. A small price to pay for salvation. This wasn't me but a quiet kid at school one of the bullies was picking on. The quiet kid never reacted even when the bully punched him. This went on for months and the bully was always trying to get this guy to fight him, but the kid always said, "I don't want to fight you." Then one day the bully broke this guy's art project on purpose. He was about to hand in to be marked and the kid snapped. He belted the absolute crap out of this bully. We actually had to jump in and break it up because he was going to kill the guy and didn't look like stopping. I will never forget the bully turning up to school a few days later and his face was so swollen and one eye was completely closed and black and blue from all the punches he took to the face. I learned 2 things that day: bullies are cowards and always be wary of the quiet ones. There are 3 things all wise men fear: the sea and storm, a night with no moon, and the anger of a gentleman. Patrick Rothfuss. This happened 6 years ago when I was in 5th grade and the bully was in 6th grade. I'd gotten to school a bit early and was just chilling on my phone when the bully came up and started ranting about how I couldn't be on my phone. Me. School hasn't even started yet. Besides, it's not your business. Bully. I'll go tell a teacher and they'll take your phone away. Childish, I know. Me. They won't care. School hasn't started yet. Just go away. He then reached for my phone. He literally tried to take it. Of course I didn't let him. I was getting really frustrated and told him, again, to go away. He didn't. He decided it was a good idea to fricking punch me in the face. I wasn't ready at all, so I didn't even have time to put my arms up or anything. Just a first straight to the face. Now, I was a pretty small girl back then and the bully was a year older and apparently played a lot of sports and stuff. And on top of that he was standing up and I was sitting down. I just snapped. Without even thinking, I just punched back as hard as I could. He just kinda stared at me before running off. I could literally hear him crying. He shouted at me that he'd tell a teacher, but no one mentioned it to me ever again and I never got in trouble. The bully didn't bother me even once after that. You have to be the biggest P in the world to be a guy who punches a girl in the face while she's sitting down. It wasn't me, but a kid I knew in middle school would constantly get picked on by 2 other kids who would act like jerks, badger him, push him around. Well, one day they were messing with him, pushing him around, and calling him names, and he looks at one of the kids and calmly says, "If you push me one more time, I'm going to punch you in the face." The bully decided to push him again and the kid turned and punched him square in the nose. The bully immediately started crying when he realized his nose was bleeding. He ran off with his friend to tell on the kid even though they were bullying him in the first place. Everyone around him, including me, was cheering him on as he had stuck up for himself. Was bullied in maybe 2nd grade. He kept pushing me and messing with me, so I just swung at him when I was sick of his crap. I sat his butt down and he's left me alone since. I think we became friends later, I don't remember. I wore glasses, so was bullied by every single bully in the school. Unfortunately for everyone who tried, they didn't realize me wearing glasses didn't also make me not be over 6 foot in grade school. So I got bullied a single time by every bully and then never again. Is it possible to learn this power? In 5th grade I saw the girl who bullied me getting picked on. Her mom died due to health complications and someone was saying she died because she was too fat. Even though she picked on me every day, I still stuck up for her. She didn't thank me or anything, but I think after I did that she was a little nicer to me. Good on you for being the bigger person and helping someone in need even though they were crappy to you. Hopefully she remembers this and has stopped her crap since. Year 7. So I was 12. Part of the bullying included this other girl being a dong about getting into our lockers. She had the one next to me, and they were both on the ground, so we'd have to put our bags on the floor when we wanted to get into them. If she got there first, then I had to wait for her to finish before I could get to mine. But if I was there first, then she'd shove my bag out of the way and wouldn't be patient at all. It sounds unimportant now, but this wasn't the only thing that was going on. One day, she grabbed my bag and shoved it out of the way like normal and I snapped. I yelled at her, explaining exactly how she had been being unfair, and that she needed to make a freaking decision on which way it was gonna work, and then stick to it. She and her friend literally had their mouths hanging open in shock, which is a sight I'll never forget. And the lockers stopped being an issue after that. She decided on patience rather than shoving bags out of the way. I just wish I'd lost my crap at the bullies more often. Maybe the rest of it would have stopped sooner. My twin sister makes fun of me and doesn't stop. One time I had enough of her bullying and I told her if she didn't leave me alone I would strangle her. She still wouldn't leave me alone, so I attempted to pretend strangle her. I just grabbed her neck for a few seconds. It was enough to scare her and she ran away crying. We were about 9 or 10. I was the quiet kid at school. Bully had been especially annoying to me that day. At lunch he yelled something to me. I walked up to him and slapped him across his face. His face instantly became red and he jumped at me and tackled me to the ground. I shook him off, then shoved him into the wall. After that he didn't mess with me. So I grew up moving around a lot with mom and dad. Unfortunately that meant being the new kid quite a bit. I was a pretty awkward kid but I generally managed to make friends. Except one particular school. I was there for 3 years, which is the longest run at one elementary school I ever had. Anyways, the popular girls would bully me constantly. I was about 50 pounds soaking wet when I was younger and was on average skinnier than most. They would call me anorexic and ask why my parents starved me, etc. They didn't. My parents were and still are amazing. But one day the popular girl asked me to give her a push on the gliders. You'd hang onto a T-bar and push off from one but platform to the next. Well, I pushed her really hard and she fell off and broke her arm. I transferred schools the next week. I moved a lot. I had 9 schools before college. Not fun. New boys tend to attract bullies and I was small for my age. Good times. I was about 8 at the time. A group of boys at school gathered around me, formed a circle and started pushing me around. I was a reserved and shy kid and this was surprisingly the tipping point for me. I started yelling at each of them and asked them if bullying a defenseless girl made them feel cool. They backed off. I saw one of the boys alone in one of the washrooms, common sink area, and for the first time, he said hi and walked off. I'll never forget this day. This girl had had an issue with me for a month or so. She was pretty beefy but was all talk and no bite. One day we were queuing for lunch and she stood behind me whispering in my ear that I'm a waste of space etc. The normal stuff. Then she started taking the pee out of my family. She said that my brother is just her baby FG. He's 10 years old and I have pictures all over my social media of him wearing dresses since he enjoys dressing up. She said that my sister is a freak and my dad is fat. Then she said that my mum should have had life support turned off while she was in hospital. She had recently spent a month in hospital with sepsis. I can only assume she had done some serious digging around on Facebook or something, but for me, as much as my family gets on my nerves and angers me, I can't stand people using them as some sort of leverage. Anyways, next thing I know the cutlery I'm holding is being dragged down her face and she has her hands around my neck. It all kind of happened very fast but also in slow motion. I punched her boob. She kneed my stomach. Eventually 2 teachers drag us apart and I obviously look in the wrong for striking first. But she also has blood running down her face from a couple of deepish scratches. She got suspended for 3 days and I got suspended for a week. I was pretty lucky tbh. We never had a run-in again, but she also transferred to a different school the next term so everything just moved on. I do wish I hadn't snapped BC. Not only did I disappoint a lot of people, I also most likely scarred that girl's face for life, which I feel super crappy about. IDK, she deserved it when she told you your mother should have died in the hospital. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.